Good morning. I'm Sharon Minchow with this breaking news. The mayor of Galveston, Mayor Craig Brown, holding a press conference one day after Hurricane Beryl swept through the Houston-Galveston area. Let's listen in.
It's Peretta from District 4, David Finkley from District 2, Bob Brown from District 3, and we've got Sharon Lewis from District 1. So we've got a number of our city council members here today also. Hurricane Beryl, as you know, this has been quite a hurricane, and I'm speaking mainly for Galveston right now, but this hurricane in many aspects caught us by surprise. We were getting input from our meteorological sources, and up into midnight before it came ashore there around the early part of that Monday, on midnight Sunday, we were still getting reports that we would have wind speeds that were less than what we experienced. We've had street flooding from this surge. The surge down on the west end has been flooding streets and so forth, keeping people out of their houses or keeping them in the houses and could not get out. We've had extensive damage on the island. We've had structural damage. We've had reports of tornadoes. We have had a lot more concerns with this hurricane than we were ever thinking would happen before it came ashore here. So it's one of those things, thank heavens, we have not experienced any fatalities or serious injuries due to the storm. So that's one good thing that has happened. We were prepared. And had crews out working that right after the storm came ashore. But as I mentioned, we have more damage than we ever suspected. So it's something that we're working on diligently right now in the city, getting everything back to as normal as we possibly can, as fast as we can. We're shut down in a lot of areas. Second, with our recreation centers are shut down, our Lasco pool is shut down, but I would say city services beginning today are back to normal in most instances. Our sanitation, our police, fire, all of the services, public works, the planning department, all of the city services basically are back up running, back in normal operation as of today. I wanted to tell the citizens of Galveston that if you have damage, be sure to go on the website of Texas Department of Emergency Management portal to make sure that you register that damage. That's very important, not only for you, but for the city of Galveston. We need to register with TDM that goes to FEMA, and so that we know and FEMA knows how much damage actually is occurring on the island, so that we can reach a threshold that we then will have FEMA funding. So it's important that our citizens understand to go on that FEMA TDM portal and register where your damage is, an approximation of how much you had. Now, I'm going to give you some thoughts this morning about going to websites and things, and I've asked Marissa to print all that out so you don't have to keep track of that. She's going to have that printed out for you and be distributed here this morning once the press conference is over. Our phone systems are down. The phone system at the city is down. The phone system at the county is down. The phone system at UTMB is down. And those phone systems are down because we all share a specific organization in Houston that manages this phone system, and it went down in Houston. And when it went down, it affected the county, the city, and UTMB. We're working with them right now to get up and running as quickly as we can. 911 is operating correctly. So 911 is operating, so you haven't lost at least that access to emergency care. So that is kind of where we stand with the communication from the phone system at this time. I would say, too, that it's important that citizens register if they have not with Notify Me program that we have at the city here. Marissa has that information printed out. And also register with our one call system that we have here at the city. That system is a system you can register your email or your phone number and get text so that you can be notified and not have to go to social media or the website at the city or anything like that. Marissa is going to be pushing that information out. We've been doing that. Yesterday we sent out 2 notices to our community, and today we'll be sending out more and updating the community on the status of the city. But we will be texting those individuals or emailing those individuals to make sure they're notified if these are individuals that don't follow social media, watch the TVs, or doing anything like that. With the electricity down, that's a main problem, of course, on following the media here. Wanted to mention also, we have enacted a system here in the evening. We have not called for a curfew here on the island. I visited with the city manager at length and the chief of police here, and the chief has guided me that for better control of our community, what we're doing with nighttime patrols here is we're increasing the number of police officers at nighttime here on the island. And that's been increased quite a bit. We want to make sure that we're monitoring property, not spending time possibly chasing down people that may be just driving down the street after a curfew hour. We want to make sure these police officers are in the community, monitoring property and making sure everyone is safe. So I wanted to tell everybody, if you're coming to Galveston here, and I'm sure a lot of people are in their homes there in Houston and have no intention right now of coming to Galveston, but if you do and you're here in the evenings, we would advise you to stay away from the island in the evening times until we can come back and get running full time. That's going to be very important, but we will have extra police out at night patrolling all areas of the island, not only behind the seawall and downtown, but on the west end also. That's very important. I would say also that power, most of the calls I get concerning when are we going to have electricity back. I've talked with CenterPoint, the staff has talked with CenterPoint repeatedly. I talked with them late last night. Some good news that we're hearing from CenterPoint. I am told by CenterPoint late last night that their goal is to get the majority, as many of the customers they can on the island up and running and back online by the latest tomorrow. I didn't get a time on that. I don't know if it's late at night tomorrow night or if it'll be early in the morning, but they're working diligently to get many of our customers back online as quickly as possible. And to support that, to let you know, CenterPoint, as you probably know, has hired many crews from outside the state and brought them in to help them. They've had almost 17,000 people that extra they have hired now to bring into the Galveston, Houston area. And on the island here, we have hundreds of crews from out of state that have just arrived on the island as we speak and we've made arrangements, and our city manager has made arrangements to put them up while they're here so that they can get us up and running as quickly as possible. And we're being told by CenterPoint that those hundreds will go to thousands by tonight on the number of people on the island outside of the CenterPoint service area, but extra personnel to get us up and running. So that's going to be very important. We have a cooling center that we have opened this morning. It's hot and humid out there, and so at McGuire Dent, it's at 28th and Seawall. It's a recreation center, and we do have it open as a cooling center. Activities at the McGuire-Dent Recreation Center are not in operation, but you can go in there, get cool, charge your phones, and things like that. And speaking of charging your phones, our firefighters have opened up all the fire stations here on the island. They're going to open their doors up for people to come in and plug their phones in, and all the outlets that they have available to make sure they can charge their phones and get everything recharged from the standpoint of their devices. So we'll offer that to all the citizens here on the island. Debris pickup, we're starting that. We already started that yesterday afternoon, and we're moving into that in a more concentrated way now. We'll have all of our sanitation workers. We're bringing more in and calling more in so that we'll be doing that and put a lot of focus on that. And also we may be, and this is still not decided for sure, we may be contracting with a third party to bring a third party debris removal company on the island here to make sure that we have enough people to really clean this debris up and get us back lucking and operating here as normal as possible, as quickly as possible. We had a little concern yesterday with our emergency operating system, operational system, EOC. We had calls coming in and they could not get anybody to answer their calls. The good part of that was due to the phone system that I mentioned that was down. And the other part of that was that they were inundated with calls at time when it was operating and so forth. So as soon as we get our call system back up and running, we're going to have a lot of people that will be calling back in. And we hopefully, as soon as we can get this phone system up and running, we won't have any concerns with people contacting the EOC. But as I mentioned, 911 is operational and they can call 911. I talked to the Port of Galveston just as I mentioned a little while ago. The port is closed, and they are closed to cargo and cruise operations right now. There is one ship, Mariner of the Seas, that's a Royal Caribbean ship that is out there that's overdue to come in, and the Coast Guard has given special clearance for that one ship to come in today. Mariner of the Seas will be in today, but once that ship comes in, there'll be no more port activity. The Coast Guard, talking with the port, Coast Guard will probably clear the port to open up cargo and cruise operations tomorrow, but that's not a definite thing at this point, so we'll have to wait and see kind of how that works out. Also, I talked with the Park Board this morning, representatives of the Park Board that manages tourism on the island here, and I want to say in their behalf, in the city's behalf, that we are kind of in a cleanup situation right now. We're in a situation where we're trying to get up and running and get our residents back to a normal way of life as quickly as possible. Once we get to that point, then we're very welcome to have visitors back. But until we get to that point, and hopefully that won't be too far off in the future, we are not really set up to handle visitors at this point. But we are hoping to get up and running and welcome all those visitors back as quickly as possible. I think I've gone through all the things that I wanted to mention to you. Let's open it up to questions and see what any questions you may have.
Do you have a total number of people affected without electricity, or what percentage of the island doesn't have electricity?
I was told Monday around noon, I was told 70% of the island was down. That's about 30-something thousand, 35,000 people was down. I don't know what the particular percentage is right now. In talking with Centerpoint, the first thing they did, they sent out an assessment crew to make sure they assessed the area. Secondly, they got hospitals, nursing homes, fire stations, all the essential type operations up and running. That was their primary go and their priority. The thing that also they did is they started looking at residential homes, those residential homes that they could turn the electricity back on quickly and get them up and running. They did that. There were some residential homes, though, that had specific concerns at the weatherhead and other types of electrical concerns for a specific home, and that particular home did not get energized yesterday. And that's why we're getting calls from some of our residents that's saying, well, 3 houses on our block have power and 2 of us don't. And it's probably those 2 houses that don't have specific concerns to that house. So CenterPoint, though, is working through that. Yes, sir.
Another question. Yesterday we were driving on 3005, the road that connects to Jamaica Beach, and we saw like more than 50 light bulbs, big ones falling down. Is that part of the electricity that comes to the island? Does that affect Galveston?
It does not. No, sir, not necessarily. Those poles do not. 3005, as you know, is a state highway that's controlled by TxDOT, but those poles are down, and we're working with TxDOT in the state to get those back up and running as quickly as possible. Yes, sir. Any other questions?
Impacting the island's power.
Excuse me?
They aren't impacting the island's power at all, except for the West End homes?
That's right. Brian, did you want to say our city manager has some more details on that?
That's the main line that runs west. They're rerouting power as best they can to get power around those lines, but that is one of the major lines out there. And with the arrival of all these extra crews, they're going to start getting these poles stood back up pretty quick. The fact that the poles lean may not necessarily be detrimental to transmitting power. They just need to get them up to where cars and people aren't going to be able to be harmed by the poles. So we have some that are completely damaged. We have some that were in the lane of traffic. We've rerouted traffic. That's what the mayor was referring to. We worked with TxDOT to get 3005 back open. But yes, they are impacting, but primarily power on the west end. Power to the island comes across in a different way, and we have never lost that power to the island.
Major, earlier you mentioned something about tornadoes, spotted tornadoes. What are those locations, or where was maybe?
We've had some remarks about structural damage to homes and buildings on the west, more towards the western section of the island. And they are saying that tornadoes possibly involved. We don't have, at this point, factually know that's the case, but it seems to be. As you probably know, following this storm, that storm, we were on the dirty side of that storm, and who got, on the west end, they got more of a concern with that storm than we did on the east end. And even though the whole island really had quite an impact, the west end took the full brunt of that storm as it came ashore.
Any report of people with injuries? I know you reported no fatalities.
No fatalities. I haven't heard of any serious injuries to date. No, sir.
Is there a sense of why the storm was able to take the island by surprise the way it did?
You know, we here, and Brian probably is going to say a few words, we follow the National Weather Service here at the island officially. We also, here in Galveston, we have 2 private weather services that we utilize and pay for ourselves here on the island to get as much information as we could. And from a weather standpoint, I could not answer that, but I know that it was bouncing around a lot. If you saw this, my goodness, before they saw it was going to come into Matagorda Bay, I bet you it was no more than 36 hours, 48 hours before that, it was going into northern Mexico. This storm was moving around quite a bit. I have friends and talked to the officials in Corpus Christi and Rockport. They were sure that thing was coming in right there. They prepared. They shut that city down to prepare for that. And that thing at the last minute skipped up to Matagorda Bay. And as it came ashore, came a little north of Matagorda Bay. And that's what, it doesn't take a lot of movement of these storms to really impact you on that dirty side. And that's what caught us. Ryan?
Yeah, a couple of things along those lines. First of all, from an emergency management perspective, we always plan for one category above what they're predicting. So staffing-wise and things like that, we were fairly well prepared for the storm. One of the things in talking to our private services that occurred, is that this storm, and we've all heard how compact this storm was coming in, as it approached the land, it spread out more, and the higher winds spread out a little bit more than I think what everybody was anticipating. But we were prepared for a Category 1 at landfall, and that's we got every bit of that here on the island.
I know there's a meeting scheduled this week regarding emergency declaration, but has it already been signed?
Yes, it has. We were one of the first in the county to sign our emergency declaration. I can't remember. I think it was either that Friday or Saturday before. I think the other cities followed up on Sunday, but we signed ours on Friday or Saturday. We had, you know, I've mentioned before, and most of the cities on the coast, of course, can say the same thing. This is not our first rodeo with this. A week before this storm hit, our legal department prepared our disaster declaration and prepared any evacuation ordinances in advance. And so I was contacted before we even went into the weekend of all of the orders that were ready to be signed if we needed to do that. And we pulled the trigger on the disaster declaration either Friday or Saturday. We called for a voluntary evacuation on the west end on Saturday, and that took place to begin at 10 a.m. Sunday. I would say I was out patrolling the island Sunday, and I saw a lot of people moving off this island, so I think a lot of people took that to heart. So I was glad to see that.
Why did you declare it?
Excuse me?
Why did you declare
The evacuation?
Yeah.
We declared it a voluntary evacuation for the west end. And the reason is that's not protected by our seawall. So with a surge, and we were predicting, at one point they were predicting probably 2 to 4 feet above normal tide levels for our surge that was coming in. As it got closer, they thought it might be somewhere around 4 feet. And then I started hearing at the last minute that it could be 6 to 7 feet. What we did, though, we called for the west end. That's not protected by our seawall, as I mentioned. And I'll tell you, we do in some of those areas, it's so low out there, we have nuisance day flooding. That means on sunny days, when we have real high tides, you'll see water in some of these streets out there. We knew that they would get hit the first and probably have the worst concerns out there.
Mayor.
Yes.
Also along those lines, this storm, timing is everything, and we love visitors. We just don't like hurricanes visiting us on the 4th of July. But this one was coming in. Our island was full in terms of short-term rentals and hotel operators and things like that. And a lot of people have never experienced a hurricane or understand what to do or what areas of the island are more impacted than others. So we thought the voluntary evacuation was a good idea to get the word out to people who might be staying in some of our West End beach houses and things to better understand the severity of the situation. Because what we didn't want to have happen is we didn't want people getting stuck in their homes out there. They rented a beach house, you're down here for the weekend, the water starts coming up, you panic, and all of a sudden our emergency services become inundated with people who didn't understand that this was possible. So we kind of did the voluntary evacuation more out of an abundance of caution. You hear that a lot. But we did it mainly for folks that aren't necessarily familiar. Most of the people that permanently reside on the West End, they know these areas, they know what to expect, they know when to hunker down, they know when to leave. But we were really trying to get the word out as best we can for those that may not be as familiar to it or that are new to the area.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it was quite a situation. We had this storm approaching, and we had one of our busiest weekends. We had probably 300,000 extra people on the island for the July 4th weekend. And so you put all that together, it was kind of coming together to be quite a concern to us. And that's why, as Brian mentioned, we want to let those people know on the West End to take heed of this and to probably leave early.
What do you talk to tourists? Like the ones that are here or the ones that are coming in, to stay, to go away? What will you talk to tourists?
Well, as I mentioned, right now we're in a cleanup area. We're in a phase of getting ourselves back to normal. Right now, we need to wait and see until we get everything back to normal, get the debris cleaned up, get our power back on, those types of things. Then we'll welcome the tourists back. I can't give you an exact time on when that will be. Won't be too far off, but And a lot of it depends on when CenterPoint can get everybody hot on this electricity.
So pretty much tourists don't come to the island right now.
Right now, we would like to just take time and get our residents back up, get our infrastructure back up, and get our residents back to a, quote, normal way of life before we do that. Yes, sir.
Are the beaches open?
Yes, sir, they are open, by all means.
Speaking of the beach, we were driving down Seawall yesterday, and the water was some bizarre rust color or something. Is there any idea what caused that, or was it just all the churn from the storm kind of?
You know, let me say this. Here at the, we kid here at the city, we have National Weather Service and 2 private weather services. But here at City Hall, we have our own personal weather person and environmental person.
He jest. But I will say, what you've got is we've got a lot of stirring of sediment. This storm churned up an awful lot. Another thing that was a little different, most of our storms approach from the southeast. This one was coming up from the southwest, so it stirred up quite a bit of the Brazos sediment that drops out of the river. So we are experiencing a little bit more of that right now, but there's nothing unsafe about the water. It's a lot of sand and sediment from the river systems that have been churned up in it. That combined with all the flooding we've had upriver this year already has dumped a lot of that sediment into the Gulf. So you're seeing a little bit more of that now. It'll probably filter out. I haven't been up there this morning to look, but it'll start clearing out pretty quick. I will say, about 24 hours before the storm came, we had some of the bluest water I've seen in forever. So it'll clear itself out. But most of it is river sediment and things like that.
You just have a time for the cooling station, when's gonna open, when you're gonna shut it down?
Yes, sir, it'll be open at 9:30 this morning. It will go to 6 p.m. this evening there. And as I mentioned, it's at McGuire Dent at 28th and Seawall, our recreation center there.
And 6 p.m. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yeah.
6 p.m. is what we're advising now. We're going to wait and see how many
how that works.
see how many houses CenterPoint can get energized today and evaluate later this evening. If we need to extend it a little longer, that's fine. The best part about Galveston is you're going to be able to catch a breeze at night. So we're more worried about these very hot daylight hours of getting people out of the heat and out of the humidity and into some cooling. But we'll evaluate at the end of the day if necessary.
By all means, and we could keep that center open longer. We may have it open tomorrow, may have it open a number of days to make sure that we support our residents that really don't have power. It all goes back to this power. I get people calling me all the time now, and they're saying, well, you're the mayor. I'm sure your house is back on power. I have a wet heat sauna in my house right now, and so it's however long that takes, and I'm hoping my house will be in that condition that where they'll re-energize it tomorrow. So I hope I'm in the Wednesday schedule on that.
Have you received any word for the citizens which grocery stores or fuel stations have been able to reopen? I think yesterday just Walmart. A lot of people were looking around, where can we go?
We do have, and Marissa, do you know, have a list of those?
We're going to be posting shortly on our social media and asking for people to provide updates on where they're seeing gas stations open, so that we can get the public input on that. And then we are calling around to see which grocery stores are open, and we'll have that up as soon as we got it.
We have heard that most of the major grocery stores are back open today, some of them on generator power, but we have heard that they're operational right now.
And I'd like to let the citizens know, because this is very important to our citizens. On University Drive, the Whataburger is open, and it has not closed. I don't know if you know it, but a lot of these trunks of electricity, and let's take UTMB as an example, these trunks that go to UTMB, they also have other residences and businesses around UTMB that's on the same trunk. And so I get calls all the time, and they go, well, my house doesn't have electricity, but Whataburger does, so what's going on? They're on that UTMB trunk. So I'm hearing of more and more restaurants that do have their power back, and hopefully we'll have more of this. This time tomorrow, hopefully we'll have quite a few more.
I know it's for a smaller population, but there have been questions about where people who have electric cars can charge them. Do you know of any electric cars charging stations that are open?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know. I know the port had some charging stations there, but I'm not sure where they're located. I'll get some information on that and let you know. Okay.
So UTMB is up and running normal?
Yes, sir, they are. Now, their phone system, as I mentioned, is still having concerns like ours, but yes, sir, they are up and running. Want to thank everybody, appreciate it. There's friendly faces out there. I see a lot of you guys sometimes, so thank you for being here. And if you have any questions, let Marissa know. She'll have the answers for you. Appreciate it.
Listening to the Galveston Mayor Craig Brown along with the city manager Brian Maxwell there. Big takeaways on this press conference following Beryl is that the city was caught by surprise and they were not alone. Up until midnight Sunday, the mayor is saying they were still getting wind speeds forecast lower than what actually happened. There has been extensive damage on the island. They say that most city services are back to normal. The mayor, though, asking residents to please go to the Texas Department of Emergency Management's website to register your damage. That's for you, and it also benefits the city because that information goes to FEMA, and that helps determine the kind of funding FEMA will give to the area. This is a big note. The city, county, and UTMB phone systems are all down. This is because they share the same Houston organization then it went down. Do note 911 is operating correctly on the island. City also asking local residents to register their email and phones with the city so that they can get text information to them, especially important because calling the phone lines to the city and the county will not help. There will not be a curfew at UTM on the island, but Galveston Police will be increasing its patrols. A big question for everybody, when will power be back? Mayor saying that Centerpoint tells them that the majority of the island should have power by latest tomorrow, that hundreds of out-of-state crews have arrived and they expect that number to turn into thousands by tonight. Another big piece of information for folks on the island, fire stations are open to be able to charge your devices as of last night. About 35,000 people, 70% of the island was without power. The good news, no fatalities, no injuries have been reported. And of course, without power, that means no AC, a big issue for the island and for Houston. Kim Castro, yesterday we had a hurricane. Today we've got a heat advisory.
Yeah. Not a good combination with all these power outages. And like you heard Mayor Brown say, 70% of Galveston Island without power. And that was the projection yesterday. I'm assuming today it is going to be a little bit higher of a count. So Galveston and all of Southeast Texas right now under a heat advisory. Expected feeling outside with the humidity between 100 and 105 degrees. Now, the criteria for a heat advisory here in Houston is typically 108, but taking into account the massive power outages, this has been enacted in order so that officials can open up those cooling centers. Now, here's a live look at Pleasure Pier, the official recording station in Galveston that tells us the temperatures, the humidity, the wind is down. A lot of sensors are down because they're without power. Now, we do have our neighborhood weather network that allows us to see the actual streets on Galveston Island. Typically, all of these streets that you see here would have a sensor, would give us a number to tell us what the current temperatures are. Right now, only one of those is working. Driftwood Lane, actual air temperature right now 85 degrees. So I'll use that sensor again to see what the feeling is on the island. It feels like 100 degrees right now. Feeling this afternoon with the peak of the sunshine right around 4 o'clock. It's going to feel like 107 in Sugar Land, 105 in Katy. Galveston Island is going to hover right around 101 to 102 throughout the entire afternoon. So you heard the cooling center right now expected to stay open right around 6 p.m., but I think that might get extended because the heat advisory actually lasts during the overnight hours. It doesn't expire until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Of course, like the mayor said, Galveston Island gets a breeze, but even still, I think the feeling is going to be pretty hot today. Future track radar shows us we're not going to see much relief by way of shower activity through the afternoon, even into tomorrow. Only a 20% chance tomorrow to see an isolated shower. We don't want additional rain. However, these isolated showers do provide a little temporary rain relief from the heat. We're not going to see that Tuesday, Wednesday, or really into Thursday, a 20% chance low. By Friday, those rain chances hike up to about 30%. Here's your 7-day forecast. So again, a lot of heat to track, very isolated shower chances for the next 7 days. I'm also keeping a very close eye on the creeks and the bayous to watch those slowly, hopefully recede by later on today. But a lot of the projections show levels that are going to be high for the next couple of days. I'll have more details on that, Sherman, when we see you back live here for the new newscast.
All right, thank you very much, Kim. All right, stay with us as we continue to follow Beryl's aftermath. We'll take a break now, but be sure to join us again on KHOU 11 News at noon. And if you're watching this on your phone or device, turn on your notifications to get the latest pushes about that power situation and so much more. Take care.